From drone racing to helping crop production to making dropping footage, Dawson Wagner dives into what all can become from being a drone pilot or drone videographer. Welcome to the 529 podcast, where we dive into the exciting world of startups and side hustles and chat with fascinating entrepreneurs about their experiences and insights. I am your host, Nathan Anla, and today we have Dawson Wagner, who has been working with drones since college and now produces amazing drone footage, working with companies to help their media stand out like never before. We have a really good episode in store for you guys today. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hey Dawson, glad to have you back. I know we had you on the TNT podcast a couple months ago to speak on multimedia journalism. That was a great episode, and for those who are interested, you can check out our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube library to listen to Dawson speak on his career. But now that you are here, we will be speaking on drone piloting as a side hustle. So can you tell us a little more about your backstory and kind of how you got into drone piloting and drone videography?
Yeah, it kind of relates in a lot of ways to multimedia because of the opportunities that I'd seen others do in their stories that they've told. There's a lot of journalists now in the field, at least for news stations, that have the remote pilot's license, and we're able to get those to bring an aerial angle to their stories and to capture something that, someone might not see on an everyday basis. And that's really what drew me towards drone cinematography in the first place, was being able to capture something that you don't see every day, and being able to take that and put it across all social media platforms and whatever channels that I might be able to create to help others visualize and see a story from a different perspective. And so really it was that kind of, urge and want to discover and figure out how that works, which led me down the path of, getting my unmanned aircraft systems minor at K-State, and then ultimately getting my Part 107 remote pilot's license and starting commercial work. And so it was definitely a long 3 to 4 year process of getting that minor, taking the tests, getting the right license and certifications, and then being able to really build off of the experience that I gained to eventually start commercial work.
So can you kind of walk us through a little bit of the process for how you kind of went through those drone piloting courses in order to get the certification and education that you need?
So there's a lot of different routes you can take when getting a remote pilot's license, but the main route is your Part 107 remote pilot's license, and the only way to be able to fly commercially is if you have that license. If you want to make any money off of any video, photos for drones, you need to have that license. And I was planning on getting that, but first I wanted to get the knowledge of, it was going to take to pass the test to be able to get that license. And so I figured, there's a minor here at K-State. I'm getting my degree. I might as well add that minor on, and then I can kind of knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, get a license and also get a minor, and be able to really diversify my skill set when it comes to storytelling. And so the more that I looked into, what it kind of took to, take the classes, the more that I realized, okay, I need to take some classes online through the Salina Polytechnic campus, which is one of the, I would say it's one of the premier institutions for any aeronautics, anything that, what somebody would want to go into in being able to fly planes, drones, really anything relating to the FAA. You oftentimes will take courses and go through the Salina Polytechnic School and the great things that they kind of provide in terms of being able to build up knowledge and confidence in pilots to be able to then, fly commercial jetliners, or the smallest level, a tiny drone for a remote pilot. And so for me, it was personally that journey of learning about, okay, what is the first class I need to take? And that was through K-State with one of my professors, Nick Homburg, where I'd fly 100 plus hours with drones to be able, or with his drones, with him there to be able to get my license. And so it first requires at least 150 hours of flight time. So, and that usually is beneficial if you have another remote pilot that's already certified, because they have to be able to oversee you as you fly your drone. There are recreational and hobbyists that could go out and fly drones and have their own, but you can't make money off of it, and you can't really fly in any area that may or may not have certain restrictions that you can't get into without that license. And so it was nice to have a professor who was able to kind of oversee and help me through that process of getting those hours. And then everything else was really like personal accountability, studying for the Part 107 test, going through the trial and error of passing it. It took me 3 times to pass that thing, and that was difficult for me, just because you're not just learning about the things that it takes to be able to fly a drone. You're learning about the airspace that manned aircraft also fly in, and you're trying to learn about how to read a weather reporter, the things that go into being able to identify, what frequencies that your controller and your drone are emitting, and how to make sure those connect, and the things that really take time to build confidence in is the more intricate, detailed issues relating to drones, such as some of those things that I had already mentioned in regards to weather reports and flight and airspaces. And so that stuff does take more time, but ultimately it was a great payoff for me to be able to actually learn and get that experience, because now I'm a more confident remote pilot, and it's allowed me to be able to kind of explore what ways can I teach others and make videos and be able to fly drones in unique ways that people haven't seen. And so, yeah, that's kind of my path and journey towards being able to get the Part 107 remote pilot's license that ultimately took me about, a year and a half, 2 years to get.
Kind of now that you've been through all those classes, courses, certifications, when did you start kind of feeling comfortable and feeling that you kind of had the hang of being a good drone pilot?
Oh, that really came probably about a year and a half after I had started flying all those hours. You get a good grasp of it pretty quickly once you fly, 10, 15 times, to really learn the maneuvers of like a rising crane or an orbit, or being able to move your drone in a 360 motion at a specific angle as it's going up in elevation. Those things take time and practice to be able to learn how to get certain shots and make them smooth too. So often you'll see choppy drone footage out there, or things that are just glitchy in a way. And that's because, the drone it has multiple degrees of which it can move. And that's taken to another level when you add in like a FPV drone, which is a first person view drone, which allows you to completely flip your drone over and do complete 360 in all directions and have complete control in any way you want. And so when it comes to the more traditional drones, such as a DJI Mini 2 or DJI Mini 3 Pro drone, those are more for, cinematic shots and being able to get those real estate shots, or anything in regards to farm landscape and things that don't require speed. It's more for beauty, I guess. And those are the big 2 differences between the FPV drones and kind of regular drones, which I've looked into both, but ultimately I'm more into the beauty aspect of what you can capture with drones, and that's why I've focused on that, mainly with my Wagonair media content that I've been able to curate and create. And so, yeah, ultimately, I feel like it came down to just the practice and repetition of those, and about, a year and a half later, after doing those, every 3-4 days, and going through the routine of launching the drone and going through the pre-flight check, making sure to check the batteries and the camera and the controller, it just becomes, a habit, and it becomes habitual. And over time, you build up that confidence with those habits.
You kind of hit on your company, Wagonair Media. Could you tell me all about that company? How y'all do your branding, your marketing, how you first got started, and how you kind of first found first sale, your first business?
Yeah, so Wagonair Media was really born from my last name, Wagner, and it started as more of a radio, like on the air. I'm on the air for Wagonair kind of thing, and then ultimately I was also like, well, I guess I'm also in the air. So I'm on the air and in the air, so I kind of have a combination of the two, and ultimately that led to Wagonair Media, where I was capturing from the drone videos that I was able to get a variety of different videos and photos that people don't often see of the area which I live in, Manhattan, Kansas. And so with Wagonair Media, that kind of really just a thing where I could start putting content on. And then it started forming into more of a business when I put out a video of the band from Kansas State, and they were marching through Aggieville, and it provided a lot of different angles of Aggieville and some of the buildings. And ultimately, one of the businesses reached out from Aggieville. It's called the Alms Group, is a real estate group that saw the video and saw the band marching and the sound and the editing that I did. And they were curious about how I did it and, what it kind of took to put that together, and ultimately led to them contracting me to be able to go out and get some video and photos of their own properties that they have. And just that kind of leap in getting out of my comfort zone of sharing my drone footage. And that's ultimately, kind of where you have to get past that point of, willing to be, I guess, judged in a way where people will see your content and either like it or think, oh, cool, well, I'll go on to the next thing. Or maybe, I'll go on to their next video and then another video. And then, by the time they get to the end of all your videos, then they're messaging you and wanting to learn more about your project, what you work on. And that's kind of what it led me down this path of being able to do a few gigs here and there that allowed me to, at least on the weekends, have some time to edit and be able to capture videos and photos of these lots that this real estate group has contracted me to do. And, it's not an incredible amount of freelancing that I've done. And those, I definitely can see where it could be improved in a lot of different ways with branding and putting myself out there in ways that I haven't yet. But just getting the content online and posting the videos is the first step that really it takes to getting that first gig and being accessible to another business that would, inquire your services.
When it comes to your branding and your marketing, Dawson, what social media outlets do you find work best?
I mean, for me, it started with Instagram. I found that Instagram provided with, the easiest form of, I guess, posting and distributing my content to a larger audience. And then along with that was TikTok as well. From there, it really kind of just spiraled to, well, if I'm doing these two platforms, then I might as well just start trying on all the other platforms, because the more that I can distribute my content widely, then the more likely I might get someone to click on the video and then direct message me. So then it kind of built up to Twitter, and then from there to Facebook. And so when I post on one, at least with one video, I'll usually then cross-post it to TikTok, Facebook. Recently, I tried out Threads. Threads is interesting, to say the least. There's not much engagement going on, but it's a different form of Twitter that allows you to then cross-post Instagram. And so I'm of the mindset, the more the merrier, if it doesn't take too much time. Really it's copy and pasting the caption, hashtags, and being able to put those out on the other platforms that then will drive up engagement. And so from the amount that I've posted and been able to do, I've found that hashtag drone video, hashtag, what are some of the hashtags? I can probably look at them. I do hashtag drone video, hashtag Wagonair Media, hashtag drones, hashtag drone everyday, hashtag, you go through the mix and you can kind of mix it up, and there's common ones that you can kind of find that relate to what you're doing that you may not even have realized until you just go and explore the hashtags a little bit and see what others have posted. And so it's kind of that experience of being able to see what some have done and then have my own take on it, and being able to adapt my content to have a creative, Wagonair spin in a way to it, where I'll have my logo at the end of every video. And that's kind of the crux of what provides the consistency across all my videos. And so since I started on Instagram and it was more of like radio stuff at first, it is a mix where all my most recent videos it's like the last 15 videos I've done are all drone videos. But then before that, it's like a mixture of radio and news, and being able to tell multimedia storytelling. And so that's a more interesting part of my Instagram profile if you go look at it, Dawson Wagonair. But if you go to my TikTok, since I was kind of a little bit later to joining that and was more so when I took my drone video to social media, it's only drone video. And that's partly because it really comes down to your trust of the platform. And, people have different ideas of what they think about TikTok. And I'm of the mindset of like, you know what? I'll just keep it for my business stuff and put it out there of kind of the cool videos I do. But I don't want anything too personal to me on this platform because I just see it as a way to be able to connect with people through my drone storytelling. And if they want to get to know me, then they'll know me in real life, and if they really want to reach out, then they'll direct message me in some way. And so that's how I kind of approach the different platforms and kind of what they provide in terms of opportunities and being able to reach out to others. But I try to distribute among at least all the big ones for right now.
Whenever you're distributing this media, have you had any kind of issues with copyright or any kind of legal insurance issues?
As of recently, because of the whole thing with the Universal Music Group on TikTok, I had like 2 videos that had the audio removed because of the agreement that Universal Music Group couldn't come to with the artists or like the people that represent the artists that I was able to, use some of their music from. And so one of the videos I had like Mac DeMarco and one of his songs playing in the background for some of the shots that I had of like some trees in the fall. The sound was ripped off of it because they didn't want it, but the video stayed up. And so that's what's interesting with, platforms like TikTok where they seemed a little bit more strict about that because Instagram never had an issue. TikTok, on the other hand, has been a little bit more strict in how they come to certain agreements. Mainly probably because of the amount of people that use it. I don't know all the details of why they choose certain songs not like copyright, but ultimately when it comes down to it, it's finding unique artists that maybe aren't broadcasted as widely and songs that people might not have heard of that then I love to be able to put video to help people really follow a cool set of a series of shots that then will kind of transport them to another place and kind of let them disconnect for a little bit. Because, in a way, we go to these social media platforms to connect while also disconnecting. Like, it's a weird contrast of you connect to disconnect from the whole reality of it all. But at the same time, you can connect with others to then build up kind of your repertoire and the amount of opportunities you might have too. So it's a double-edged sword. And so balancing that on social media has been, I'd say, like trial through fire. I don't think really. It's been just trial through fire and trying to understand, okay, I'll put this out there, use this song, highlight this artist, and I'll cross-check it to make sure that, music-wise, I'm not running into any issues. And then if the music gets taken off of it, I'll just update it to a different song.
When you're trying to create this content, what do you go to for inspiration? Find the places or maybe like the types of videos you're making?
I'd say that a lot of the creators that I follow on Instagram, FPV pilots and a few, farm real estate people that are able to put out content that really capture some of the cool things about like humanity and society. And really it's those videos that you see of large prairies and indoor within houses and small tiny spaces with like an FPV drone tour that really get me like passionate about wanting to capture and tell stories like that. Really, it comes down to just trying to see what they do with their transitions between different videos and different shots that they have, and then comparing that to what maybe I could do with different music and audio and sound effects and transitions that are able to immerse the viewer even more in the art of what the story is kind of telling of, this unique thing that maybe you're capturing. For me, it's been cornfields that I've been able to fly over and be able to really see the waving of the different corn that then is going to a beat of a drum, and you're transitioning to all the different shots that showcase that corn waving in the wind with the drum beat, and it builds and builds and builds until you see the entire field in front of you. And that's really the cool thing about the storytelling is the viewer doesn't know what to expect until it happens. And that's really where the art comes in, that I think drone video and audio on top of really cool transitions on social media is where the magic kind of lies, and why I try to pull from people who use those types of things in their videos to be able to do, creative edits. And so there's, accounts like Mr. Steel FPV, and Mr. Steel FPV does a lot of cool FPV videos where he flies through really fast and all these different courses, and also at the same time is able to kind of do a behind the scenes of what it looks like and how to be an FPV pilot. And so to each their own. I'm not of that caliber. I don't really show the behind the scenes as much. It's more just showcasing my video. But, for more people, the more you get into it, some people are willing to be able to show how they do their setup and create their content. So who knows? Maybe I'll be there one day.
You've spoken on kind of all the different types of drones out there and all the different types of things you can be doing as a drone pilot. Can you kind of explain to us, just give a brief explanation of all the different drones, equipment, and software out there and kind of how they're used?
From what I've seen is there are so many different sectors of drone video making that when you really view the field of unmanned aircraft systems, you have to break it up into sects of like first-person view. You have FPV drones, and then you have, large industrial drones that then can be used for farming, fertilization, being able to, carry things and have payload. And then you have the smaller unmanned aircraft systems that are like below 249 grams. Those are the ones that I fly. I really enjoy the smaller drones because they're easy to access, carry around, be able to get up in the air, and then register with the FAA. All these different ways of being able to create video or be able to capture different scenery in different ways or be able to carry payloads and such, all revolves back to you have to have your drone registered if you're going to be making money, and that's through the FAA drone zone. And so the FAA drone zone is what allows you to register your drone to be able to have a ID number that then you print out, put on the side of your drone, and is in of a sense like a certification basically showcasing, hey, I have my drone registered with the FAA, completely legal. You can check it online at the space, and if somebody were to ever come up to you, you can show them the proof of that along with your Part 107 remote pilot's license. And so with any of this, that's really what is required before you do anything, is registering that drone, and then you can try out the different fields of flying an FPV drone through a course and going into more of the racing aspect of, being able to dodge and weave outside of hoops and within a stadium with a large audience. And that's cool for some. I'm definitely more on the side of, capturing the slower shots and being able to piece together a beautiful video that allows a person to kind of just disconnect from the chaos of the world. Whereas FPV video and first-person view flying is chaotic. I mean, you're right there. You are flying as the drone, and that's where things can get exciting. Those are kind of the two contrasts, along with anything in regards to police, firefighting. I've seen a lot of drones be implemented, at least here in Manhattan. The fire department, they purchased a LiDAR sensing drone to be able to use light detection and ranging for when measuring, how bad a fire is or where's the worst spot and how they can be able to put out the fire the fastest. And those are a few of the different methods that you can kind of utilize. And I kind of touched on like the farming and more of the agricultural purposes earlier where, in that realm, you're more so measuring, how tall is this crop? How healthy is it? What kind of frequency and wavelength is it emitting at that then the sensor is able to pick up on this drone of how healthy the plant is. So it's really cool where you can tell just how healthy a plant is from a drone. And it can send that data and information back to your controller. Then you save that, give it to the farmer, able to help the farmer be more informed on, what crops are healthy and what are not, what's being, maybe threatened by this one invasive species and then what's not. And so those are the cool different aspects that I really enjoy kind of diving into or did dive into at the beginning of my kind of journey into remote sensing and learning through my unmanned aircraft systems minor, just all the different opportunities that, getting a drone might allow, or at least getting a drone remote pilot's license then would allow you to explore those different avenues. Doing all those, well, I've barely seen anybody try to do that because you usually, focus on one or the other, and it becomes like a niche that you really get to explore. And so that's where I think kind of siloing yourself down and being able to hone in on a specific skill set of flying your drone is important. It's good to diversify, of course, and learn, but at the same time, becoming a professional one part of the drone field is kind of where then you can make some ground and be able to create content or do more jobs related to your specific interest.
What are the kind of services you're charging for? Do you have kind of package services? How much do you charge your client, and kind of how often are you doing this work?
So I do have one FPV drone. It's one of the older DJI FPV drones that has allowed me to do more indoor work, where I had a gig recently with a company called Top Shelf CBD, where they were a brand new shop in Manhattan. They wanted a video, flying down from the main highway where you could see their shop, and then you would go down into it and be able to see inside of it, and then fly back out and have the address pop up at the end of where it's located. That was something that I was able to really explore with that gig, and how, indoor flying is done. I have rotor protectors that I put on the drone when I'm doing that, just so if, you run into anything, it just plops down the drone, doesn't cause any harm to anything. That's partly one precaution, is when you are flying indoors, it's good to have rotor protectors, and that's partly why I use that for a lot of my gigs for Wagonair Media. And so with charging, that's more so on the range of how well I know the person. If I don't know them that well, they're requesting my services for an hour. Usually it's, $75 an hour. I've upped that recently. If I, have to travel, then usually it's at least $100 an hour. And so it just depends on how much then I'm doing editing wise. So if I'm doing editing for 2 or 3 more hours, then that's 200, 300 more on top of that. And so it really depends on my relationship though with the person. And since it's definitely still like a small thing outside of my regular 5 to 9, then it allows, or 9 to 5, allows me to really expand over the course of time, maybe into more avenues that would allow me to set my pricing structure at a higher rate. But for right now, it's been this last year getting my foot into the door and getting more opportunities and allowing myself to kind of grow from those smaller things that, I don't charge an incredible amount for, but allows me to get content and resume material that then I can put out there and show people, hey, this is what I do, this is what I've done, and I could do this for you too, potentially, for a small price of $75 an hour, whatever it might be that I end up giving that person the rate of. But that's kind of the rate that I started at, just to keep it simple. If there's any complex editing or color grading of things later on, then price it out after that, about, $75 an hour. So that's the run rate. In the package deal, really it's, if they tell me, hey, I just need you to come out here, get 10 shots, 10 photos, and that's all I need, then I say, okay, that'll probably be, $75 for the amount of time that I go out there, get the drone up, get the drone down, and then probably another $75 if I then need to go through and edit each photo and then be able to send that to you. So yeah, that's kind of my pricing structure right now, and how I go about getting just the information shared with each client, and who really is wanting me to do what, and it varies per client, and how well I know the person too. I think that's really how everybody kind of approaches it. Is if you know somebody better, then you might offer them a little bit better deal, and it also gives me material to work with.
And are there any ways you can kind of think of kind of how you could scale those packages if interested? Is there a way that could replace your 5 to 9?
Yeah. I think when it comes down to being able to create more in a package for like the Top Shelf CBD place in the past, I just got a video of the shop flying down in and then be able to fly back out. Whereas I could probably scale that up in the future with, I have $75 an hour for being able to fly the FPV through, and then you want another $50 on top of that for being able to get photos inside the shop and outside, and then being able to package that on a website and putting those two together with photos, videos, a tour on the inside, and then also outside photos and videos that really allow the full capturing of the business and who they are to be seen online. Putting the FPV drone together with just the regular DJI mini drone kind of allows more flexibility and being able to maybe increase that over time. But for right now, it's really still getting my foot in the door and just trying to build that out over the next couple of years.
Have you had any kind of issues with mistakes or failures along the way that you've experienced?
The only thing that I've really ran into with at least the FPV drone, FPV drones can be kind of finicky sometimes with the technology that's in them because it's mainly just video that I'm capturing. And so the GPS sensor on that started having issues. And so I've currently sent that in to actually get fixed because it's more of a complicated issue than what I can do when it comes down to soldering and like putting together the interior of the drone. It's best just to be able to hire that out in a lot of cases because you don't know, or I guess some people do know what it's like to put together an FPV drone and kind of the intricacies of what the types of materials are required and tools. But for me, I've seen the videos and I've watched the process so many times that it's just so painstakingly complicated in some ways that I'd rather just send it off to be able to be fixed and then be able to pay that to then pay it off back when I'm able to use it without having any issues. Because if I were to try to fix it myself and then it continue to have issues, then I'm just going to cause more problems for myself down the line and cost me more money later on. And so ultimately, it's helped me just to send that off, get that fixed, the GPS sensor back up in shape, and be able to get back and flying with that. That's the only issue that I've really had so far. And that GPS sensor issue just came from the one instance where I clipped the side of a tree branch, barely skimmed it when I was getting the exterior shot of a residence, and then it fell down into the brush next to the tree. So thankfully it wasn't any issues. Ultimately, it was just a slight nick of the branch and then falling down into the brush that was able to somehow knock something loose inside the drone. And so it takes precaution and planning. And so I was watching where the drone was going, but it barely nicked the side of a branch that was sticking off of a tree. And it's the smallest things that can sometimes, cause some of the weirdest issues to happen in the drone. And I've definitely learned that from this experience. But ultimately, through planning and preparation, through a pre-flight check plan and going through and making sure I have rotor protections on my drone and having a flight path, that's where I've been able to avoid a lot of the common mistakes that other drone pilots might make if they wreck their drone or they don't have a set plan beforehand that allows them to be able to fly safely. And so thankfully that's the only issue I've ever had was nicking a little tree branch and have my drone fall into the brush.
Where do you see drone piloting and drone videography kind of taking off from here?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of different avenues that this could lead down with so many different forms of technology that are being created. I mean, we've seen in the last week, and you guys have probably seen the videos of the Apple Vision Pro. And the Apple Vision Pro is spatial computing that is like unseen, unheard of. We've never really seen this experience like before, besides with Quest and Meta's versions with Oculus, and this is more of a augmented reality where we're able to kind of combine the two. And so in some way, that's already a thing with FPV drones. You see people put on these headsets and they're able to fly as the drone and be able to experience something that is otherworldly in some ways that some people just would never even be able to comprehend. And I get that same kind of feeling when I look at the Apple Vision Pro and the things that you're able to do with that device. I think is really inspiring in some ways for people who would possibly want to fly drones or experience the opportunity to simulate what it's like flying a drone. I think that having spatial computing or like a representation of your environment that then would allow you to practice before you actually go out into the real world and have a representation layer within your spatial computing environment to practice flying would maybe allow a blossoming of new pilots and people that could actually try out the flying of a drone before they even put their hands on a real sticks and controllers and end up wrecking the drone into a tree. So like avoiding that and skipping all those trial and errors and just going straight to the simulator, because that's what I kind of started on first, was a simulator over here at Kansas State, because there was flight simulators just on computers where we plug a controller in and then we'd fly on the desktop. And yeah, it was kind of old type technology in a way compared to now with what we can do. But 4 or 5 years ago when I started learning that, that's really where I kind of got my comfortability at first to have the confidence to go out there and then start flying a drone for hundreds of hours. And so I think kind of the future of the field is gaining more experience for other people through the use of these AR, VR devices that are able to re-simulate kind of what it's like to fly a drone before you even fly it. So maybe it'll allow more people to try it out, and then it'll create more people who want to get into the field of flying a drone.
The current competition out there for drone piloting and drone videography, do you see it kind of increasing? Is there like a surplus now of drone pilots not being able to get enough work, or is there maybe still a lack of supply and increase in demand?
I think it depends on where you're living, where you're located. In Manhattan, there's not too many drone pilots. There's probably like 3 or 4 that are main big ones that are kind of contracted out that I have been able to see on social media too. In the bigger cities, there's definitely more competition. And I think when it comes to like Kansas City or Wichita, which are the 2 biggest cities in Kansas, that's where you see a lot of drone pilots and a very competitive market in regards to real estate and being able to capture things for clients. It's nice that I've at least got my foot in the door here in Manhattan with a real estate group that just so happened to have a drone pilot they had before who moved out of town, and so they needed a replacement. And so I was able to kind of weasel my way in there and start flying here and there on the weekends for them. But having freelancing is so interesting. Freelancing is the hardest yet most fun thing because you get to do it you get to create it yourself. Like really it comes down to your determination of what you want to do with your time. And if you don't have the grind and the ability to reach out to people, create content, consistently put up videos, brand yourself, then you're going to either have to hire that out, and so you're spending more money on other things, or you're going to have to spend more time personally in investing in learning about those things. And thankfully, through my education at K-State, I've been able to learn a lot of those techniques and experience and gain that experience. But for a lot of people, they're just starting with nothing. They're trying to learn from YouTube videos. And so I think the more that people can be able to watch videos and learn and be able to gain experience before they actually, go out, start reaching out, putting themselves out there, I think the more the merrier, honestly, because I like good competition, and it's not too saturated right now in, smaller towns, kind of like Manhattan, Kansas. But when you get to the big cities, it's definitely hard competition, a hard environment to get your foot into and to really set standard. You have to be a recognized brand in some ways and have a big portfolio of work. And so that's where I feel like I'm kind of building up mine over the next, year and a half, 2 years to kind of get to that point where I'm more recognizable and I still need, to put together a detailed website with all my prices, because it's definitely still a very much a side gig, if anything. So that's kind of where I've kind of gained my experience just through, social media and reaching out to others. But I know there's other methods of being able to brand yourself that I haven't even explored yet. Getting your foot in the door in the first place and just, trying to be competitive in a big city is a lot more difficult than, a smaller town like Manhattan.
Kind of for those maybe in a big city or just wanting to learn more about drone piloting and videography, what are some good resources out there to help people?
There's a few influencers that I want to be able to touch on. There are so many drone pilots out there that provide unique angles of like stadiums and like different things that you need a lot of certifications for and hoops to jump through to be able to get the shots that they're getting and to have the connections that they do. And so, because you can't just go up and fly, your drone for like a Chiefs parade, after the Super Bowl. For that, you have to go through and you have to be in contact with the team. You have to be in contact with the media that's surrounding the whole entire parade. And you have to be able to learn kind of what is the permission surrounding this event that then will allow me to be able to fly at it and then be able to share that content. And if you do make money off of it, trying to make sure that you don't do it illegally, like making sure they know exactly what the things are that you're capturing and how you're displaying it is a part of the reason that, you need to be careful in getting content and learning from others. Because a lot of what the people can do that are out there getting those big shots of stadiums or parades or things over people, they've definitely gone through a lot of certifications of, okay, I'm going to reach out to FAA and I have to register first with the FAA. And then I'm going to talk with the coordinator of the event. And then I'm going to figure out what other media is covering the event. How are they covering it? Is there any other drones that are going to be flying at the event? And so there's a lot of different parts and aspects that just go into capturing and flying a drone over something. And some of the things that I found, there's one guy named the Cinematography Lounge. It's an online mentorship for, it's basically a community group for upcoming cinematographers. That's one thing that I've been able to learn a lot from. And then if anybody is ever interested in drone shows, that's a whole other aspect. If you've ever seen drone shows and how they have put together like different formations in the sky, like there's 4th of July events that you'll see or different things for Valentine's Day or whatever might be coming up that really allow us to view things that we wouldn't have ever been able to view without, the hundreds of drones that it takes to make the drone show happen. So I've kind of learned how those work from different profiles, such as like drone show _global. Usually when you follow one account, it will give you, different feeds to be able to then follow off of that designated account that kind of feeds your algorithm of, oh, now you'll be maybe interested in this drone group or maybe how this drone group is doing that. And so that's kind of how I explore the different aspects of drone cinematography and ways that people fly. And so those are a few that I follow, though, that have kind of informed how they capture their videography. And there's also some that are like abroad. There's one guy named Christian Orozco, and then it's just his @ is Chriserfly. He's provided a lot of different unique angles with like 3D cameras that he's attached to his drones. That's really cool perspective when it comes to being able to capture like the globe where it like as if it's a circular kind of fisheye lens. And so if you've ever seen 3D cameras, then you kind of know what that looks like. But from an aerial view, it's just absolutely bonkers and what it can look like and do. So those are a few that I kind of follow and have taken inspiration from in some ways. And hope to kind of create content like one day.
For our listeners right now who kind of are interested in going down this path and becoming a drone pilot and drone videographer, what's one best piece of advice you can give to them right now?
Consistency. Yeah, consistency. I feel like so often people face burnout because of all the other things you have going on in life, and that's easy to be bogged down by all the chaos that's going on in your life and in the world. And if you can stay consistent with your own idea and your own vision of what you want to accomplish, and not being too distracted by other things, but maybe taking cues from others and being able to build that into your routine and your habits and creating a consistent brand surrounding what you do, that's what will take it to another level that that you couldn't even imagine of the types of things that you could maybe experience. And a year ago, I had goals kind of where I wanted to be, if not exceeded those goals, definitely gone past from where I thought I might be with the amount of gigs that I've had at this point. I'm up to about 15. Really, it was at least 10. I just was like, all right, if I'm consistent enough about this and I do the right amount of video before I even start launching my brand or Wagonair Media, then I'll already have content that I can just keep putting out. And that's really what it comes down to, of being able to brand yourself and put yourself out there, is the consistency of it all. And also, the company you keep is stronger than the convictions you hold. The people you surround yourself by are ultimately going to dictate how you act, what you do, what you're interested in, what you spend your time on. And so the more people that you can surround yourself by that encourage that kind of grind and that consistent wonder of what can I do differently now? How can I improve off of this? What am I able to sustain that isn't going to, drive me crazy or completely bankrupt me? That'd be like, okay, I can at least take this step, or I know that this is a practical step because I've been able to, talk to this person, reach out, set a scheduled time, be able to go out, capture the video, photo, put it through the editing that I need to put it through, and then send it to them. And that's really, what the grind is like. And I hope for all those out there that are trying to pursue something such as drone cinematography or becoming a Part 107 remote pilot, to not be afraid to, take the leap and try your hand at the controls.
Perfect, Dawson. Thank you for coming on to here. If any of our listeners want to reach out to you, where can they reach you?
You can reach me on all platforms at Dawson Wagonair. That's just Wagonair Media. But mainly it's at Dawson Wagonair on all platforms, though. So if you ever want to reach out to me, if you ever have questions about anything, don't be afraid. Reach out. I'm always open to have a conversation about drones and talking about the amazing field of unmanned aircraft systems.
Thank you, Dawson. Thank you for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
If you enjoyed that episode, then get excited, because we have more content just like that coming out soon. If you just can't wait, then make sure to check out our YouTube Reels and Instagram story, where we'll be giving away some juicy bits of future episodes. If you're not already, make sure to follow us on all of our socials, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. If you have any questions for future guests, then make sure to check out our YouTube community tab, where we post questionnaires for our teachers. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your 529. Later, folks.